And here we go! Hey there, everyone. This is Rakarm. It's the Patreon video that we are making. Yeah, it's a bit another 1 day delay this time. Unfortunately, it's not something that has led into delicious tomato-based pizza. To make a long story short, it's like because I had issues with the banking site where I do all my banking, and where, money is stashed and kept, and like I got a new card, but I used my old card to access, and it blocked off my stuff. So, to make a long story short, I was at I had to call the bank and take care of that. So I ended up recording my videos at the time where I would normally be recording the Patreon. I didn't have time otherwise. So yeah, it's a tiny bit late, but here it is. No one cares about the rest. This is all over. The world is over. Welcome to the end. Please have your packages ready. The questions here are going to start with a few that were actually late. They were supposed to be at the last one, I believe, except for some reason they didn't show up. I'm not sure why that happened, and I apologize for that. Normally, like, all the questions I get sent to an email address, well, my normal email address that's set up just for that, but for some reason didn't send any. So again, like, if ever it seems like I skipped one of your questions or something, don't be afraid to tell me about it so that I can rectify it. It's not on purpose. My goal here is to answer everything till the end of the universe, which just happened. So it's not going to last very long. That's a good thing. Hey, this thing just happened. That's kind of funny. So, considering Demo and her siblings have no arms, how exactly do they dress themselves? Or eat, for that matter? Xerix. Well, of course, it's not gonna be canon until it gets in a game of some kind, but they dress using this hoop structure where they kind of like tie the clothing to, and they just kind of like jump in through it, sort of the same way they jump through a pipe. As for eating, well, obviously, as they have their mouth, they absorb the nutrients through their skin. I thought that was fairly self-obvious, but here you are nonetheless. An official sort of quandary to nourish your squirrels with. You mentioned a television show which never came to be. Was that where the Let's Intermission with Mega Man X videos videos back in 2010 came from? Yes, that is. That was from he has another question, though, that I'll also get to. But yeah, basically, yeah. They were, I think, was Swedish. And it was to be broadcast on actual TV. But then the economy struck and the show was canceled. I wouldn't have been the focus. Basically, my weird little Let's Plays there would have been sort of like a what do you call it? Sort of like just a thing that would happen from time, like, it's a segment. Yeah, there we go. It would have just been the segment of a broader show about video games. So, at some point they were like, oh man, here's a crazy foreigner butchering our words, saying absolutely nothing of worth, and that, I don't know. I still think would have been rad, but I am so ashamed of the text of those now that I'm kind of glad it didn't happen. Maybe it's hard to tell these things without, I need to contact that particular alternate reality cow, figure out what happened from that. But yeah, I got actually money from Let's Play. I can claim that, unfortunately. And also from that, if you happen to still remember, what was the show going to be? Oh, whoops! I accidentally answered your question. So there you go. Do you watch any of the channel Awesome People? Between you and Luke Jen on YouTube and Nash Bozart and Linkara over there, that makes up 99% of my media intake. And also, have you ever listened to Stan Rogers? I love his music and the story, despite not being a big fan of his genre. And he mentioned Sherbrooke, my favorite of his songs, Barrett Privateers, a Fusion Warrior. Let's see. I watch some of Lupa's stuff. I certainly watch, people that used to be on Channel Awesome, I guess, is more accurate, because, she quit there to just work independently, as well as Phalis as well as on Citizen. So there you go. I'm aware of Linkara's work. It's just my problem with him is that he's not a particularly funny guy, but he really, really wants to be. But his videos are really, really good when the content that he is criticizing is like really terrible. Then he gets really insightful and really interesting. So I don't watch his stuff regularly. Just when I hear that he does a particular work worth looking into, in that case, yeah, I'll tune in. While with everyone else, I'm a little bit more indiscriminate in what I'll watch. You know, it's. I've always wondered why people were so into his thing about the Power Rangers series, since all it is basically a recap of each seasons, and I don't really get it. But my job, my life, is not to understand the wills of others, I guess. Sometimes I'm just kind of like puzzled by what kind of things catch on in the world. But then again, I suppose I could say the same thing about, you know, Let's Plays of ROM hacks of Super Mario. Like, Let's Plays as a whole, even as in of itself, but then add everything else. Since the world is a cauliflower, it probably tastes better with some kind of dressing. Just putting that out there. I'm not trying to shame you for your nudity. I'm just saying. Have you ever backed something on Kickstarter? What can change the nature of man? Has there been any movies or video games that you have enjoyed ironically? Miko Fire. The only Kickstarter I have participated in is the one for Squiggly for Skullgirls, that kind of materialized in a whole, okay, Squiggly and also Elisa and also Beowulf and also soon Robo Fortune. So I'm glad it was a success, although it's taking a while to get everything done, but everything is still getting done. Working really hard on all that, and it was a success, and it's the only thing I participated in, and I don't regret it. But I participated for a very selfish reason, so to speak, because I was really interested in what they were offering. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's my money, you know. You do what you want with it, and I'm going to be selfish with it, I guess. But otherwise, I've never really caught the whole crowdfunding bug. Some people are way into it. Good for you. No, I mean, there's a lot of good in the world, and like a lot of game projects are being released now, and we're seeing the fruit of some of the labor. But at the same time, you know, there's still a certain element of gambling unless you really know what you're getting into. I'm not into that whole gambling aspect, so it's not something I like go out. I'm actually not even that well aware of what's going on in the crowd sourcing scene, to be perfectly honest. Like, I know what happens because I see the benefit from time to time, but it's great that it exists, but yeah, it really is. It can change the nature of man, war, and love. Has there been any movie or video game that you've enjoyed ironically? Probably more cartoons and stuff. I'm big into one because that takes a lot less time, so to speak. Like bad like children cartoons, especially for the 90s, they are like all terrible, but they're terrible. Some of them are terrible in a great way. Like, I don't know, like the Donkey Kong Country CG cartoon, like that's super gross, terrible, bad. Except it's so great at being terrible that it, you know, I don't know what to think. I will, if I'm enjoying terrible things, it's probably more going to be shows, because that's a lot less of a time investment. Like a movie, you know, it's just several hours long. Like, while a show, you can do it in 30 minutes, you know, chunks. Normally, for what I watch, is more like 20 minutes because of all the time that has to be removed for commercials and whatnot. In addition to that, like, games, I don't think I ever, and ironically, enjoyed a terrible game. I've enjoyed watching terrible game. Like, I'm super enjoying right now the Retsupre run-through of Sonic 06, for example. But myself played ironically, I don't think so. I'm into ironic things, but there's a limit. You know? I'm not super, like, I'm into the concept of irony, but I'd rather spend my time with stuff I actually like. Have you ever played games on the Atari 2600? If so, what's your favorite? Maiku Odaharu. That is really hard to answer. I played a super old console back in the past, but I think it was a Commodore, not an Atari, so I think I missed out on that. Like, my first console was the NES, and that was back when Mario 2 was released. So, yeah, like, I got into the world of video gaming a tiny little bit too late. I missed out on the Atari, alas. Alaska. Also, Maiku, I have to say, last week, you asked, between Paul, John, Ringo, or Sebastian. Well, I think I need to resend my answer because I have since learned that Ringo is actually a rabbit from the moon, and that's pretty rad, so I might have to go that direction instead. Thanks for acknowledging the true power of penguins as the superior species of the universe. Question: I just finished watching your LP of Distorted Travesty, and I found that game to be really well crafted and creative. Something you seemed to mention a lot, and that was that you prefer something with simple controls that is made difficult through excellent level design, than something that is difficult due to the complexity of the controls. Is this how you feel about games in general? Also, any news about Distorted Travesty 3, aka is that still a thing? Well, it was longer lead into my question I intended. I guess adding this just make me post longer. Oh well, guess it can't be helped now. Penguin rule! Then there's a penguin emoticon and Pengu Penguinson. Like nothing in my life has made it so that my position on that would have changed by now. Controls should be a tool to attain a goal, you know? Like, of course, if you're way into things like super realistic flight simulators or something, then yeah, okay. You're gonna be dealing with complex control, but in a sense, I think that's the thing. It's not necessarily that you want complex control, it's that you want a lot of like a most accurate simulation, and that's fine. But I think that in general, unless you're simulating something specific, you want something that's simpler, that's intuitive, so that, so that it doesn't become the focus. My problem with games with complex control is that they kind of become the focus in and of themselves for a little while at least. Like at some point they're going to get internalized, but it's going to take a non-zero amount of time. That's just something I'd rather, myself, rather not deal with. Of course, again, people will like different things, and I'm sure there's some games that are worth having to deal with, more touchy, more complicated controls. Distorted Travesty being one of them. But it's always going to be a hurdle for me. Like, this is a byproduct of how I learned how to video game, I started with the NES, and I continued with the Super Nintendo, and to me, that's still kind of like my alpha. That's what I compare, it's my standard. It's what I compare things to. People who started with controllers that had more buttons, they're going to be more comfortable with more complex control and more immediate options, and that's great. It's just not where I stand myself. That's the main difference. I'm way more, I like things that are more immediate, for lack of a better word, and I don't think that's necessarily wrong, like I don't think it's necessarily wrong to think otherwise. It's how I prefer my gravy, man. Simple. Actually, yeah, I do like food that's simpler. That's kind of funny, actually, how that works out. Do you have a place from your childhood you think of fondly sometimes? Like a big old tree, a bloodstone circle, the festering corpse of a Youper in general, or supermarket? The third one, there was an actual place. Also, about your wife, preferred fictional character, have an accent of any sort of vocal quirk like a lisp or strange pronunciation become a constant? Um, so, due to having a childhood of moving around all over the country due to father being in the military, I don't really, cause when you move a lot as a kid, you learn real quick to not like to be able to let go of things real easily. I wonder if that's part of how I can be so dissociative of stuff, or being like apolitical about a lot of things, like just being able to like, no, that's deciding that so many things just don't matter ultimately. I was corrupted in my youth. Because sadly, like, I can't even make up any kind of even, like, semi-answer to that. Not really. Like, are there places I'd like to return? Yeah. But I don't have, like, a specific image of a childhood place that represents anything, because it never really existed, really, for lack of a better word. Unfortunately, in a sense. Sorry. And on the subject of accent, like, I've always liked it when shows and stuff, for no reason whatsoever, will give a character an accent or a dialect from something else, because it makes the entire fictional world more complete, more complex. And so many shows out there, and fictional or game movies, have everyone basically speak the same way. Or if there is going to be someone with an accent, it's going to be for a very specific reason, or to make a joke about a culture. In reality, you're going to have some people with a given accent for no reason. Like, they were born somewhere and they moved around and things change around a little bit. Like, of course, there's going to be some change. If your stuff is happening in the Midwest, where population does tend to be more homogeneous, well then, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But a lot of work out there actually takes place in, like, big cities and stuff, where it should totally not be the case. And, so yeah, that's my thing about accents and stuff is super awesome in works of fiction. As for my hypothetical waifu that you're trying to create for me, I literally have no preferences. Sorry about that. Who is your favorite artist, illustrator, classical and contemporary, as well as FLCL or Dead Leaves, Anonymous Bloodlust? Man, artist, illustrator, classical and contemporary. Well, artist / illustrator. I will always give my big ups to Salvador Dali. I mean, maybe it's cheating to give artist role here, but dude is considered to be, by some, to be the last of the classical artists, because the technique in his painting is so intense, and at the same time his work is complete dream nonsense, and that's what makes his painting so powerful. Like, I'm assuming that y'all know what Salvador Dali is, and if you don't, somehow, like, just Google it. You'll see stuff, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. To me it feels like cheating, because to me it's such an obvious answer. But maybe it's not for everyone. I don't know. As for contemporary, I'm always kind of not sure what answer about this, because I've realized over time that I absorb a lot of images, but I am super bad, and I do mean like terrible, at remembering sources, at remembering artists, which sucks. Like, I'll have to get you back on that, because at the same time, if I'm going to speak about this, I feel like I should have, like, some kind of visual display or something. But no, just right now, like, I got images in mind, but I can't. I know. Canterbury, the guy who draws One Punch Man. And you know what? I will go and take the time to find some references. Give me a second here. Like, look at the detail and the shapes here of just this one page. Like, this is a big one-panel, I think 2-panel spread, actually. And just look at the shape, the line work, the very subtle photoshopping here to give a lot of depth. It's, man, like, the guy is amazing. And what I'm gonna show you next, like, looks like, GitHub, there's a guy who sort of put everything together. See all these individual pages? Those are panels of the comic. Like, they're so smooth and so well drawn that you can make an actual animation from them. But in the comic, all of these are separate images. And look at, like, subtle things like how the sound effects, they're actually physically there and cast a shadow and rotate around everything. It's just so amazing. Here's another one here. Again, these are all individual panel, and I think they're like full panel pages, but that is an insane amount of work and color. Well, of course, there he's using photographs at the same time, which just kind of makes it more crazy. There's that one, I don't know why the GIF is so small, but again, these are all full pages illustration. It's a big old giant zoom out of the earth. That one is super cool. Look, like, again, like that, the detail and the color. It's just, oh my god. There's that one too. That's a famous part because it's the first time where he actually did a sort of like an animated sequence in the comic. Also, the hell that the comic is hilarious at the same time. And this part here, although I heard that this maze was actually drawn by someone else, but it's part of the comic for some reason. But yeah, so yeah, there's my answer. I got an answer. That's my answer. I answered a question. I actually did. I answered a question like an adult! Also FLCL. Question! What is the best flower? What is the worst thing you have ever spent money on? Dessert of choice. How does God Emperor Raukau wear a toga or golden armor, or does he just think about it in his boxers all day? Zio Masada. Best flower, the lotus, like, what is the worst thing I ever spent money on? I'm hesitating between, there's a PlayStation game that was like a compilation of 6 Master System games, I think, and they were all terribly ported, and it was a terrible experience all around. I'm pretty sure I must have spent money on a worse, though, but it's just not coming to mind. I remember one experience is that technically the cost of the thing was so small, but me and a friend were in the city, and it was a hot day, like, hey, let's go buy ice cream at the ice cream, place. And they had a new flavor involving, like, I always take something like chocolate because I love chocolate, and I was looking forward to that, but you're like, hey, you want to try this new meringue flavor thing we got? And I was like, oh, okay, without really thinking, and I got it, and it was bad. But, like, that's like sub $2, so it's a bad thing, but it's not like I spent a lot of money on it. I don't know what would be the worst, if you take into consideration cost of object and impact on my life. I don't know, I don't buy a lot of things. Let it be known. So, so yeah. Man, I never realized that, actually. Dessert is, of course, chocolate pudding. And God Emperor wears, sort of like a half armor. Think of True Ogre in Tekken or something. Just, he's a guy. He's not green. People are not green unless you're, rotting or something. That's super gross. How much are you legit hyped for Magal X2s? Asked Horikawa Otane. I'm pretty legit hyped, except, it kind of simmered down over time. But that's just how I am. And once we get closer to release finishing status, then I'll get my motor hyped, all hyped up, hype again, hype 5. Don't worry. So, what is your opinion about Yooka-Laylee, made by the people who made Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong Country? Asks Felix, quiet protag. Well, okay, so I was asked something similar about this in the past, and my answer is still mostly the same. Let's call it cautious optimism. Like, I'm glad that they see, like, at least the screenshots show a very, very Banjo-Kazooie feeling, at the very least in terms of screenshot, but, like, we don't know what the game's gonna be really yet. Also, the game promises lots of fart and burp-based, like ability skills. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. Like, Banjo-Kazooie had some crude humor, but it wasn't super integral to the gameplay. That seems to be going a bit too far, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's just me getting older. It's probably just me getting older. I apologize. Otherwise, again, cautious. I hope it's good. Like, I never hope a game's gonna be bad, but I hope it's good. Hopefully it'll be good, and it's gonna be like, yo, welcome to Dynasty Warriors, and, well, I don't know how that would happen, or how that sentence would ever, like, you know, apply. Like, really now. Dear Raocow, who is your waifu? Love, Whoop Whoop. Signed, Whoopar. Man, I don't know, that's kind of a personal question to ask there. Like, I don't know, you know, I've always said, maybe, you know, there's certain breach you do not cross when asking people questions. Like, it's going too far. It's going too far. Break the planet in half, please. No, okay, let's not. But, I can't even play around with it. I don't know what to answer. I don't even know what to answer that as a joke. Because I'm afraid that if I joke about it, someone's going to take me seriously. So again, I'll go with Rabbit Ringo. That seems to be the best answer possible. Yep. What is the best amusement ride? Asked Will Hart. Fun fact, because I'm a tall guy, I have had not a lot of luck with going on amusement ride parks. Basically what happens is, because of the length of my legs, a lot of parks, the amusement rides, if I try to go on them, the thingy that closes on your legs to help you stay still doesn't close good. So I have gone on a very, very, very small amount of rides in my life. So I'll video one of those ones where you're in a room and strapped to a machine and it moves around and you've got VR glasses. Not VR glasses, but 3D glasses. I don't know the name though. Also, I barely ever go to amusement parks. I think I went to La Ronde in Montreal like once ever in my life. So there you go. What would your favorite ice cream be like? Texture, taste, texture, scent, smells. Go nuts and create a Talkhouse ice. Go nuts to create a Talkhouse ice cream mascot. Ambassador Nimishary. Is that a thing? An ice cream mascot? It's a fire crook. Well, I mean, maybe if you took Oreo ice cream and added Smarties in it, and like maybe like a bit of chocolate sauce on it, have it really, really cold, and on the somewhat more, not liquid, but not hard ice cream, if you understand what I'm trying to put down here. Like, the way you phrase the question seems that it would require a lot of words, but I feel the question can be asked without many words indeed because of this. No, it's, more words doesn't necessarily mean more, in this case at the very least. Especially if you're talking about food, because you know what? The less detail I give, the more you fill in, and the better it's gonna seem. So there you go. There's your answer, and also my explanation for the answer, as I tend to do for some reason. If you were to LP a dating sim, how awkward would it be on a scale of 1 to Facade? Telemon. I did, let's play a dating sim. I forgot the name of it. It was during one of the it wasn't a random week video. It was a video where I played several random games in it, and one of them was a dating sim. And my date died at the lunch place and the restaurant. There you go. That's a word. And then I ditched and I ran away. So it happened. I think it was funnier then awkward. If you're talking about a real dating sim, yeah, it'll be awkward. Of course it's gonna be. How can it not be awkward, Telemon? Can you usually remember your dreams? Do you record them? Do you record them? If so, do you have any that stick out to you as really amazing or bizarre that you could share with us, Jason Stone? I usually do not remember my dreams. In fact, I am terrible at remembering my dreams. When I do, I forget them almost immediately. So, sorry to disappoint there. Although, this is a rare exception where I actually had a moment of lucid dreaming the other day. I'm talking like a few weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago maybe. You know that basically like the brain cannot, like if you're reading a book or something, like the brain has to make up the entire content of everything, and usually will not be able to do as such. Because what was happening is that I don't remember what I was looking for exactly, but I was reading a book, like, and I was cross-referencing something. So the problem is, when I turned back in the pages, I noticed I couldn't find the same chart I was looking for in that same page before. And like that doesn't mean, like, I remember I went pages and pages and pages, like flicking through, wondering why is this not matching up. I remember very explicitly seeing this. It's the reason why I even went back a few pages and stuff. So why is this not working out? And then that's when I kind of realized I was probably dreaming. So, you know, where I was sitting in the dream, I had an old CRT computer screen. I was like, okay, that was kind of like had sort of like grayish color to it, like in the screen. And I was like, okay, I was looking at the screen. I thought, okay, if this is a dream, the screen is going to light up and become bright white. And it did. And I was like, oh man, I'm in a dream. So I did the most Raukau thing possible. I legit thought, well, if I'm aware that I'm a dream, then this is probably cheating. So I probably should wake up. And I did. How much cow would a Raukau row if a Raukau could row cow? The answer obviously is cow row. I do not have any questions. When is it okay to lie? Do you lie often or at all? Any particular lies you regret? Would you be comfortable sharing? Ragnas. I'm actually a terrible liar, and I've known this fact for many years, so I don't try. In fact, if you want an opposite story, once upon a time, my aunt and grandmother from my mother's side were preparing a secret party for a wedding anniversary of my parents before they separated. I forgot if this was like their 10th, 20th, 10th, 20, no, more than 25th, something like that. But they know that I'm terrible at keeping, not only keeping secrets, but also, you know, lying to protect. Like, because what happens, I was aware of it, my mother had to not be aware of it, because it was to be a surprise. Now, the problem is, you know, so if at any point in time my mother was to ask, hey, how come my sister is at my mom's place, but I'm not being invited? What's going on? You know, I had to find some kind of cover, something, right? But it just so happens that it never came up, fortunately. But yeah, so I'm such a bad liar that people expect me to be terrible and kind of warn me about it. So my character in Cortex is only a mild exaggeration. Mild. Hey you, Raukau guy, what's with the compulsion to spell your name with a lowercase r? I need to make a conscious effort every time I type your name now. Also, you are now on the spot. Give us an official full name for Demo and Friends series thing. Try not to make a Demo and Friends series thing. Alex, I don't know. It's Raukau with a small r. You know, okay, you know what, back to the lying thing. One exception, in school, because I was in art, and you need to always find a context or reason behind everything you do. I've always been super good at bullshitting my way out of that, but that's an exception because no one cares about stupid student art projects. You know, it's like whatever, man. Whatever, man. Oh man. However, yeah, it does count as a lie, huh? So I haven't secretly been pretty okay all along. Whoops. That's a kind of a weird thing to find out. It's been in this weird time and in a weird way. What? But the small art thing, I don't know. I just think it looks different, and it just I always wrote it that way for no reason in particular. Well, because I write almost only in small letters, as you've probably noticed. I just, I think it started as a joke, but then I just kind of like kept going at it as a sort of running gag, and then gets taken seriously, and as it's taken seriously, I take it seriously too, because it's funny, and just kind of goes from there, really, mostly, I think, I believe, and also I will be one day, perhaps. Also, I don't know, I've always called them the Space Demons, so yeah, the Space Demon Minions, or ABCD, if you go by game logic. Really enjoying the Cortex project thing. I gotta ask, what are your general thoughts about the party's actions to this point, and are you happy with the way Rescow has evolved as a character from the beginning? Simone Babu. This is hard to answer because in where the videos are right now compared to where we are in the campaign, things change a bit, and I am kind of confused as to what you guys know and don't. So I'm going to refrain from going into too much detail, but I will say that I've been enjoying it a lot. Due, in fact, mostly that I've been very poor at predicting what my fellow players are going to do. And that's what makes it fun. It's the unpredictability and it's just being the worst possible people around, apparently. That's just great. And it's kind of funny that you bring up the way, like, Rescow, when I first started, I wasn't too sure what I was doing, but I kind of like what he's up to. Like, he's an opportunity for me just to, like, turn my brain off, just kind of, like, think of very specific patterns, and, follow those patterns, like follow this sort of like rationalization flowchart, and it's great. And just like seeing how it fits into bits and pieces there, especially since Horikawa seems very bent on trying to force our characters into doing things they normally really don't want to. So just everything falling in way too nicely, I guess. A word. So yeah. If you had to pick 5 characters from a fighting game, who would they be? Horikawa Tane. You don't even give a context for picking. Picking for what? Well, okay. Whenever you need to pick someone, it's always for a frisbee competition. So with this in mind, the 5 characters I would want on my team, obviously, are Dalsim, Fulgor, Misfortune, Rachel's cat umbrella thing, and let's go with Suika, since technically she debuted in one of the Toho fighting games, so she counts. There we go. As for a question, sometimes I crop these questions weird. If you could pick any 2 fighting game franchises to have a VS series, other than those I already have, what would it be? Signed, Crispy. I have for a long time wondered, thinking that'd be super awesome to have a Marvel vs. DC game in that way. In the way that Capcom vs. Marvels are made, knowing fully well that it would be extremely impossible. But then, because otherwise, as I was growing, I thought it'd be neat to have Capcom vs. SNK, and that actually happened. However, the selection of character they used was too obvious, and too Street Fighter versus King of Fighters. Like, if it was a broader approach to their franchises, that would be super good. And otherwise, I don't know, man. Surprised. I'd rather the VS series work due to their surprise factor. So it's not really something I've really thought about beyond that. So I don't know. Last question, which is more than one question, because of course, Two questions, now that it's free stakes for all. I haven't been on the Talk House all that much, but I noticed that you've managed to avoid bringing up some pretty controversial topics. The most obvious one of late being Gamergate. How do you manage to tune that stuff out beyond being the apolitico? I'm just gonna answer that right now. That's just it. It's stupid. I don't care about it. I don't want to hear about it. I'm gonna hear about it. I'm gonna hear opinions about it, but it's not my place to judge. I don't judge people. I don't judge actions. That's how I've been. It's how I've not trained myself, but it's how I've always tried to push myself to be. That's just how it continues to be. Like I'm gonna comment on things in real life from time to time, but I don't make my life other people's businesses, basically. So there's not a whole lot of things that are gonna happen that are gonna affect me on a personal level, which makes it a lot easier to have a more aloof perception of things, perhaps. So, I don't know. I honestly, other than that, I'm really not sure how to answer this. That guy, if... to answer your second question here that I haven't read yet, I remember you doing a random video of you standing in a parking lot next to your old office one evening talking about things. Have you ever thought of doing that type of video again? It doesn't have to be something exactly like that. It could be something of you feeding ducks and speaking your mind. I've thought about it, honestly. It's just that that video was several different factors just kind of like lining up real perfectly. If it ever happens again, it's gonna happen again. But I think that what makes that video in particular work is it's in that kind of video, you could say, is its scarcity. You know?